All right, let's call this regular meeting of the Vergennes City Council to order. Will you all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. We do have a couple of revisions to the agenda. They're just a simple matter of some numbering changes. We are adding item E under the city manager's report, and that is a Job Corps update. Were there any other amendments from anyone? All right, we'll move forward. We have Matt Crowley here this evening with us.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Matt Crowley is actually here as my guest this evening. I have asked him to come and be recognized by our city council for the outstanding work that he did in developing the new Vergennes City Hall conference room. And I just wanted to thank Matt for his great work.
Thank you. Good job.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks for everything.
Thank you. Nice job, dude.
All set?
It looks great, your family. Thank you very much.
Yep. Have a good night.
Thanks, Matt.
Now go out to your boat and enjoy it.
What's that?
Go out to your boat.
We're not there yet.
Thank you. Moving along, did anyone have any questions on the warrant that was circulated? No? We'll move on to the approval of the minutes from the last meeting. Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any comments or corrections? I had a couple. Under Route 22A alternate truck route, the second to the last line, city manager, authorizing city manager Chabot to construct should read draft. That recommendation to VTrans. Next page, under city council goals, the second paragraph. He and the city manager will be attending meetings, plural, in Ferrisburg and New Haven. And that was it. Any others? All those in favor of approving them as presented, corrected rather, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? They carry. Julie Basel, you are here. Was there something that you wanted to speak to us about? Great, thank you for joining us. Very well, we'll move on to business. The VEC resolution. Was there anything you wanted to say about this?
No, just based on our last meeting, I did take the liberty to draft a resolution for the council's approval in support of the Vergennes Economic Corridor. It's probably appropriate if you haven't read it to read it, and then any amendments or adjustments you'd like made, I can certainly do that, but we're looking to execute that.
And we'd like to execute that tonight, I think.
That would be preferable.
All right.
Unless there's any amendments.
Well, I'm actually going to read the resolution then. A resolution in support of the Vergennes Economic Corridor, Vermont Route 22A alternative truck route. Whereas the city of Vergennes bears the extraordinary burden of 9,800 vehicles through its historic town, more than any other municipality of similar size in the state of Vermont, and whereas at a public forum held on April 2nd, 2019, the Addison County Regional Planning Commission and the engineering firm Stantec, Inc. of South Burlington, Vermont, did prove that over 800 trucks, 500 of which being tractor-trailer units, and as many as 6 trucks per hour carrying hazardous materials travel through downtown. And whereas, since said forum, there has been an overwhelming outpouring of support from business leaders, residents, and city officials for this project, and whereas the city of Vergennes does not benefit financially from this imposition, but to the contrary suffers from the negative economic impact caused by what is largely through traffic, and whereas there has been for decades a desire by the residents of, merchants of, and visitors to the city of Vergennes to enjoy the historic downtown, its restaurants, shops, and homes unencumbered by the disruption caused by said truck traffic. Now therefore let it be resolved that the Virginia City Council does hereby endorse and encourage the study and construction of an alternate truck route diverting traffic around Vergennes, adopted this 23rd day of April 2019. Are we all in favor of this?
Can I make one small adjustment?
Yes, you may.
Talk about 9,800 in the first sentence, but there's no time frame around that. 9,800 vehicles, an hour
You're
a
absolutely
day.
correct. It does not say per day.
And
That's a per day?
We may want the third whereas looks different than the rest of the whereases.
Minus 1E.
Minus
Oh, it's
one.
minus an E.
oh, no, that's a whereas.
Where's,
Whereas.
Okay,
The joys of being at City Hall.
there you go.
Twirl, 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 right, Joe?
Exactly.
Fix it.
Okey doke.
I actually can punch up the edit on this very quickly.
Can you, and then
Absolutely.
we can proceed?
Yep, you guys can move on.
You can do that during executive session.
I will, yes, I'll be back.
There you go. All right, we'll move on a little bit here to ordinance review. And I do see it to be determined. So while we await the city manager's return, let's go ahead and skip forward to F, the council goals. So we circulated, is it H? Oh, for crying out loud, it is H. G, H. H, council goals. Did anyone have any comments on this? Essentially what I did was took our discussion from our last meeting. I tried to break it down into segments that I thought sort of represented where we were. What we need to work on, and not tonight, but we need to start working on is the deadline. We need to assign some of these tasks. Many of them will be the city manager, of course, in cooperation with one or many of us. And then I'd like to see these become prioritized. And does anyone have any comments about that tonight? About any of these before we skipped ahead to the council
I see that,
goals?
it's fine.
Okay, well, we're waiting for you. So what I'd like to do is keep this item on the agenda as we move forward, and we can tackle them piecemeal, but let's keep them in front of ourselves and in front of the community, and we should start tackling these as soon as we can. And anybody has any comments or suggestions about it along the way, let me know, and I can keep this document updated.
Oh, we should address it at budget time. Anyway,
We
because a lot
should.
of these are budget items.
They sure are.
Yeah. Now, we have a meeting the first Thursday in May. The third one is
The sec-
canceled.
the second-
Tuesday, excuse me.
Yeah.
And then you're gone the next scheduled meeting, right? You're doing your road trip?
The
21st.
First,
So
I
we
think
have,
it is.
right, the 21st, the meeting
Okay.
is canceled,
Okay.
yes, correct.
So then, perhaps what we should do is try and have this on the agenda at the next meeting for a more involved discussion.
Absolutely, we
So
can do
then,
that.
then by June in budget time, we'll at least have a focus.
That's great.
Okay.
That sounds perfectly plausible. Great, thank you, everyone, and thanks for all of your input. I was really excited to put this together. I thought we've really set ourselves some goals, so I'd like to see us get going on that. All right, back to our resolution, which appears to have been corrected. Alrighty, let's pass this around for signature. Ordinance review, item B.
So this is just kind of a housekeeping topic. Alderman Koenig and I had a brief conversation in the last week. And did we have anything that we wanted to surface as an opportunity for this meeting?
just in general, I think we can talk, the, the one that's currently,
He's looking for the Opera House meeting.
the one that's currently most out of alignment is Ordinance 14, which talks about opioids and marijuana, and now that marijuana is legal, there's some shifts. The only purpose of that ordinance is actually just if somebody breaks the law with regard to illegal drugs, we can slap an extra fine on to go to our coffers. So it's just, that's the only purpose of this, even though it's a couple pages long, it doesn't really need to be. I was talking with Matt, though, that we are in a major opioid epidemic, and maybe we should refocus this ordinance to deal with that in a more interesting manner if we're going to be opening it up. And I don't have anything to go with that yet. But I wanted to talk to the chief and as we figure out some other things, or if any of you have ideas. But I know I talked to Jeremy Holm, who's dealing with Project Hope through United Way, and Rutland has something called Project Vision, which they're working on, that deals with community and opioid addictions. There's some task force through the state. So I'm just trying to figure out if there's something we can do within an ordinance structure that we could revise that. But I have nothing to actually present, but that's sort of the general idea of where to go with 14. But I also wanted to talk to Chief Merkel to see if we're getting any of these fines. If there's not any money actually being made under 14, then maybe it just needs to be removed from the books. And I didn't see anything similar in Montpelier, Burlington, or Rutland's ordinances. I didn't check everybody's, but no one else has something similar to ours.
Do you know when that was added to that ordinance, when that ordinance was enacted?
It's not that old.
Really? Okay.
I think within the last decade, but I don't know exactly. But it's not.
I'd
It
never
hasn't been
knew-
around for.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about the, that fine.
Yeah, it's the only reason it's there is just.
Well, I'm frankly supportive of striking that ordinance and writing a new one and starting afresh.
Well, but if we are, if money is coming in, then we can keep that as a subpart of
Exactly.
14.
Right.
But if it's not used at all, then
Right.
we could remove it. But I just wanted to find out whether or not that's even happening.
Okay.
And just to confirm, this is, I mean, a fine levied by the city in addition to the.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
a
think-
city has the right under state law to add to a fine on something that's already happening. So if
Okay.
it's taking place in our city, it's essentially, if it's costing our police department time and money to process this, we're getting some money back for having to have gone through this. So it's not a huge fine. It was $100 or $200 depending on XYZ, but the max
Fine
is 200.
nonetheless. Yeah.
It's fine, and it's
Right.
money, and if we're bringing in, 5 of these a week, then we don't want to do that because our budget's already this. If we
Right.
brought in one since this ordinance was passed, then maybe the ordinance isn't really necessary.
And I think, I mean, just from a, way in which we're handling these kinds of incidents, a lot of times, obviously, we're thinking more about drugs as a public health issue and an addiction, and levying a fine on someone who's already potentially struggling is potentially not the best way to. It could have more of an impact, to your point, on the person being levied this fine than it is the city in general. So something to consider.
Yep.
So for the next meeting, I will get clarification as to how much revenue has been raised off that fine. My guess it's closer to your second statement than the first. I have not heard about it bringing in significant revenue for us. So prior to the 7th, I'll get you guys that information.
Great.
And you can move it forward from there. Perfect.
Again, the ordinance review is something we'll keep on the agenda as we continue to hammer away at them. And thank you.
Bring to light and get a quick review on. Feel free to jump in.
Well, I mean,
Does everyone have access to them? Does everyone know how to find them?
yeah, they're on the
On the
website.
site.
I was in the process of updating I don't know if it's recreation. It had to do with public lands and the docks and the boats and all of that stuff. And it's probably 80% done.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd be happy to finish it and just present it for discussion at some point.
Great.
In the next month or so or two. But
Perfect.
it never saw the light of day, but it did get close. So
Right.
And then,
Perfect.
I'm sorry, Mark, you also, did you believe that we had some ordinances that had been updated recently?
I think we have
maybe
some that are
wanted to-
basically low-lying fruit that we could
Joe,
just
you-
go
you
through.
did
They're
some.
pretty. They've been done
Ben and
within.
I both
Yeah,
worked
right.
on
Yeah.
the peddler's license.
yeah.
Yeah, so I think those can just be. We just want to be able to check the box, saying, okay, within the last 3 years we have reviewed them, and then just get them onto an ongoing process, so that once we do the full review, basically once a quarter, we could just make sure we check an ordinance and say, yep, we're still good with that one, or, things have changed.
Great.
And then every, like, 3.5 years, we would have gone through the series, unless we add to them and have more than 14. But
Okay.
Thank you.
Great plan. Assessor Services Agreement.
Thank you. So,
Oops, I'm sorry, I
No.
skipped one, but go
AC.
ahead.
go ahead.
DC.
You want to back up?
Yes.
Let's go ahead. David, I'm sorry.
It's okay. I attended my first meeting last Thursday, and it was a regular business meeting. We have a retreat coming up at Basin Harbor Club on the 13th of May. That will be where we look at the 20,000-foot view of things in Addison County and set some goals and objectives and an agenda for the coming year. I ended up on the Economic Development Committee, which I was very pleased with. I have a meeting, I believe it's Thursday this week, on a project that's in the works that I can't really discuss, but it will be a benefit to the area here. And spoke a little bit about our plans for the economic corridor. Everybody's very excited. They understand that that's not just good for Vergennes, but it's good for the county and the region as a whole. So very excited to be there. It's a good group of people. I know most of them, and I think we'll be able to get some interesting and exciting things done.
Thank you, David.
You're welcome.
Now we can try the Assessor Services Agreement.
So, thank you. One of the many hats that former manager Holly wore was corralling our assessor lister group. So I had announced to the council previously that we were going to have to farm out to get an assessor to assist us. We have engaged the services of Nimric, who also does our software in the office, our accounts payable, accounts receivable. So they are a known entity to us. That's a hourly rate for their service that is not currently reflected in the budget, but we will have a better understanding when we get to budget time what that line item will look like. Obviously, that'll have to be built in to the 2020
Are
budget.
they doing the 2019 maintenance?
Yes.
They are.
Yep.
And is that in the budget? It's not in the budget prior?
There's a small line item, but it's not going to cover the need.
Okay. Are they gonna be, are you gonna be creating a punch list for them like Mel did? Or will Peter Guerin, somebody that the permits
We
will be recorded
Thanks
for?
to Joan and Melissa, we provided them with a punch list
Perfect.
on day one.
Good,
And they'll keep a running list and continue to surface it up to them.
great, okay.
Anything else?
Sit on that.
Great, thank you. 2018 Grand List Closeout. Excuse me.
So, circulated in your packet is a required document, certificate, no appeal or suit pending. And we are just certifying that as of April 1st, 2019, that we have no appeal or suits pending. It's just a requirement of us as a city municipal body.
It basically doesn't allow anyone to come back on the city for any prior acts, right, subject.
Right.
It closes the grand list in perpetuity for
It cannot
2018.
be challenged at this point.
Yep.
Take us to court or anything. It's closed. And there are no suits pending. Everyone's happy.
Great.
That's good. Let's see what we can do to keep it that way.
Any other comments on that? Bixby Gala liquor license request.
Again, so this is an annual event. The city council is required to approve liquor licenses for private business, for private functions here within city limits. And I'm simply looking for a motion and approval and a vote to approve their liquor license for the event.
I'll make said motion. Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
I'll just say I'm on the committee, so should I not vote?
And I'll be a bartender serving under this license, so.
I don't believe that
I don't
those are
think it's a-
conflicts to
neither do I.
approving
Right.
But thank you. All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Basin Task Force update.
Again, back to Alderman Austin. Thank you.
Thank you. We had a meeting last week. We did a walkthrough from McDonough Park along the banks of Otter Creek, following as close as we could the alignment as far as where we'd like to put a walking path. We were a little hindered by the high water, which was actually a good thing because it gave us the opportunity to understand what we're dealing with in terms of seasonal flooding in that area. So what we're concentrating on is signage. Bill's taken the point on that. And additionally, looking at the walking path, if everybody's familiar with the area, there's a bridge as you're headed toward McDonough Park, and once you cross that bridge, it appears as if you're in someone's backyard. So if someone's not familiar with the area, they may not understand that you can continue walking to the city docks. And so we're planning on addressing that. Jim Laro, Director of Public Works, attended the meeting, which I was very, very pleased with. Give us some insight in terms of what would and would not be possible in terms of some of the things that we like to do. He had come up with the idea as far as the material to construct the path, using the tailings from some of the paving projects, which apparently packs down almost like a paved surface over time. The flooding in that area, it's because of the way the river runs through there. There's not a lot of current in that area. So if, in Jim's opinion, constructing it in that manner using the tailings, it would probably survive anything that's likely to occur in any of our lifetimes and beyond. We also talked about parking on that side, specifically the parking adjacent to the McDonough Park. There's right off McDonough Drive at that elevation, there's some parking there which isn't really clear that that's public parking. So we talked about doing a better job of delineating that, marking it, putting some barriers there so that if a car comes out of gear, it doesn't end up in Otter Creek. Additionally, down closer to the city docks, there's an area there that we identified that that parking at that point could be improved too. Jim's on board with this. We have two of the members of the committee that are, once the water recedes and you can actually get down there, actually marking out where the alignment would go or where we would like it to go. We're very, very fortunate to have Tim Cowan on the committee, who's a surveyor. Tim had gone down and marked with flags where the high water was, which I'm sure it's well beyond that at this point. We're planning on having another meeting to do a walkthrough on the other side, which there's some things that we'd like to do over there, but really the focus is, in most of the work that needs to occur is on the McDonough side. Additionally, we talked about issues with the docks, the possibility as far as the floating docks. If anybody's down there in the summer, once the water recedes, it can be kind of difficult getting to them. They end up, not necessarily as level as we'd like them to be. So the suggestion we came up with is to put them out a little further and have, longer gangplanks to access them. Those are the short-term things that we're discussing. We'll also be identifying some long-term goals and objectives for the basin. We're very, very fortunate in that there's a good roadmap that already exists, which is the basin plan that everyone is familiar with. We will have to the council by the end of May some numbers in terms of what we'd like and what is going to be necessary to spend to achieve what we'd like to get done this year. Additionally, we received some very, very good news today. Freeman, French and Freeman, who is a very, very well-known firm in the area. They've done a lot of work in the region here, and we've been chosen to to be the focus of a design charrette if we choose to do that. And I think we should. It's free design work. I mean, it will take some work on our part, but I think it makes sense. Bill's already got the ball rolling in that direction in terms of design, logos, and signage. And so we're not starting from scratch, but our hope is that we will be able to develop something that is cohesive and make it consistent throughout the city in terms of color and logo, and finally have a brand for the city of Vergennes. So it's all good news.
Great. Any questions or comments? Great, thank you, David.
You're welcome.
All right, we have dealt with council goals, so we're going to move forward to the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm in the process of applying or writing a grant application for an electric vehicle supply charger to be stationed right off the city green near the information booth. Since I took this role, I've had probably upwards of 8 to a dozen people ask if where is the charging station in Vergennes, and why don't we have one? The closest one is at DR, and I'm guessing that's going to not be utilized to its fullest potential in the future. So that's where we are on that. I'll let you guys know. Again, we're just going to apply for the grant and see.
What are those costs?
The unit itself is about $9,000, and then there's a warranty bill. There's also a web-based platform that comes with it, so that if for any reason it's not functioning, it'll ping my phone or Jim Laro. They're not exorbitantly priced, but to get it installed, get it in the ground, run power underground, etc. The good news is, again, the location that I chose is right near a 110 outlet, so we're not having to traverse the entire city green to get electrical to this. And again,
Is that what it takes, 110?
Yep.
For
For slow charge, I mean, there's a second level unit which is will charge in 2 hours, but we really don't want to encourage somebody to park their car there, for an extended period of time. It's really just the bump in electrical to get you home if you find yourself short. And Cheryl Brinkman from South Maple Street is a local user of charging stations, so we're talking with her as well about her experience.
For those, is there a credit card swipe? How do people pay for the power? Is there an opportunity to generate revenue? What does that look like?
That's a great question, David. Thank you. It is a credit card swipe, and it is a per hour charge, for lack of a better word. There is no revenue grab to be made. It basically costs, it covers the cost per kilowatt hour.
It's more public service.
It's exactly what it is. There have been some communities who have attempted to, finance their chargers through increased rates, and frankly, they just don't get used.
Yeah.
There's enough free services, not within an immediate proximity for us, but there are multiple ones in Middlebury. So we'll see how the grant comes out, but it's a great question.
Great.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Stump Dump.
Big news, the Stump Dump will be open on May 4th from 8 to noon. It is our intention that the Stump Dump will be open every Saturday in the month of May. Again, 8 to noon, and then it will be the first Saturday of the month from June through October. There are some specifications as to what you can bring, although it's the Stump Dump, you cannot bring a stump that is wider than 4 inches in diameter. It is clean wood only, meaning no painted, no stained, no pallets that have been pressure treated. We really want only clean material, and I'll back up to say that when we executed the burn 2 weeks ago, I was very grateful to find a nominal amount of trash, for lack of a better word, in there. It was really a very clean burn for us, so that was great. again, the DPW team, Jim and the guys continue to rise to the occasion. I wasn't sure how we were going to staff this because it is required to be covered, and Jim had already covered that with his team, and they're going to rotate through over the course of the season to assist us. So again, another shout out to that group, doing great work for us. And again, there'll be front porch forum postings reminding everyone what the hours of operation are and what the acceptable material that we will receive will be. Oh, Virgin's residents only, by the way. Thank you. Coincides perfectly with Green Up Day. Alderman Bertram is again is our lead on Green Up Day. Anything you'd like to bring to our attention?
Just that I will bring bags up to City Hall next week so that if anybody wants to start early, they can pick up bags there. Hours are 8 to noon in the park. Leave the green bags roadside and we'll pick them up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Second big event of that day is that we do have a work party down at Veterans Park being hosted by our Recreation Committee Chair, Tim Cook, and anybody who, when they're done helping Lowell beautify the city, if they'd like to assist us down at Veterans Park, that would be appreciated as well.
There are hours for that?
Until complete.
Starting at,
They're going to start at 8 a.m.
okay.
And just a side note there, we are looking to have the pool opened earlier this season than past. Again, Jim and his team have been just terrific in supporting getting out sooner and pulling some stuff out of May into the beginning of May or the end of April so that we're not facing that logjam that we typically face coming into Memorial Day. And the guys have been just, again, outstandingly supportive, so I appreciate that. We're on a theme. Spring cleaning is taking place as we speak. We got 20 outstanding kids out of our school system to assist us this week. And as I said to Alderman Benton today, I was, been bopping around, just keeping an eye, and they're really doing a terrific job. And I think all of a sudden, we go from looking like it's the end of winter to really it's looking like the beginning of summer around here. So my thanks again to the DBW team and all of the students who have assisted us. We wouldn't be able to do it without them. There's no way.
Thank you.
And then we had an amended item
Yes. E.
E. Passing around, if you would help me please, Lowell. Thank you. So the Northlands Job Corps has spiked in negative behavior, which has really is becoming a significant drain on our police department. We were up there 48 times last year in 2018. So far, this far into 2019, we have already been there 25 times, and the calls are anything in nature from petty larceny to civil disobedience to assault or sexual assault. What I'm circulating is a letter that Chief George Merkel and I drafted to Clarissa Brown. Clarissa Brown is the regional manager overseeing the Job Corps facility here in Vergennes. And again, the letter really details the fact that there was a conversation that took place. That conversation took place on a Friday. On Saturday, we had a report that a student had been provided alcohol, brought over to the school campus, and left to find his way back to the Vergennes Job Corps campus with a 2.14 alcohol level. It's really, the behaviors are becoming pervasively bad. And George quite clearly at the end of this letter is calling the attention of both the regional and the local officials to get control of the Job Corps campus. There's no end of illegal and illicit behavior taking place up there, and it has to come to an end. So we will keep you apprised as to our dialogue, but this has become a front burner issue for my office. it feels like our concerns are falling on deaf ears. So we're gonna continue to work this up the ladder until we get somebody to pay attention to what's going on here in our community.
Has this been CC'd to anybody within the state or down in DC? Or is it just going to Boston?
We're working through the Job Corps, but this will continue to escalate, Mark. So the next will be DOL, and we're just gonna continue to work it up the ladder.
That whoever the state is actually leasing, do they know of this issue as well?
It's
In
gonna be,
Vermont?
again, that's gonna be Department of Labor.
Okay.
So,
But since it's a federally funded program, you might want to copy our representative and our senators too.
absolutely, we'd be happy to, thank you.
I mean, I know Peter Welch, comes here quite a bit.
Yeah,
He does.
so does Bernie.
Maybe, yeah, and Bernie does, I mean, not so much Pat Leahy,
Yep.
but
I think our desire, Bill, has been that, if we work locally, they'll fix it. But if that doesn't happen, I think it's perfectly appropriate that we do exercise all means and contact all applicable parties. I agree, thank you.
And this is the first letter of this kind going to that.
This is the
Local
second one.
organization?
The first one was the invitation to the Friday meeting,
Okay.
and then they had the meeting, and the weekend was just terrible.
Right.
So
Right.
we've actually brought the state's attorney into the conversation as well, because there's, without getting too far into it, there's some issues with false allegations, and again, we have a responsibility to run those allegations down. That can take up to 10 hours of an officer's time to do the investigations, run down all the leads, and then to close the case out. And it's just, we don't have the resources to continue to do this on a week-to-week basis.
is there any possibility of having the state police help on that? Or do they have no jurisdiction within city limits, or what's their role to play?
We cooperate very well with local law enforcement, be it state, Addison County Sheriff's Department, and our local team. What I do here, and I don't want to speak out of turn, is that they may not have the resources that they need to be able to get into individual communities, Bill.
Yeah, it was a little different situation when we were receiving some financial remuneration from the program. It's been an ongoing thing for years. It's up and it's down, and
It's up and it's down.
yeah, and ultimately, the issue and the problems rest with whoever's running the facility, period, the end. And if they can't fix it, I mean, we just do not have the resources to continue and it's patently unfair for, a city of 2,800 people to be put in the position of dealing with a facility that serves all of greater New England. And we're bearing the cost of that, and it needs to cease.
Any other comments?
Not to pile on. Is it actually been up and down, or is it neutral and down? Has there really been an up in the last few years? for our
There've
relation?
been.
And I'm not saying there isn't. I'm asking a legitimate question.
There have been directors there, since I've been involved with things, that were very, very proactive. That when they took over the program, whoever that was, they came up here, they introduced themselves, they met with our police department. Hey, what can we do to help? So I would say, and I have certainly been a vocal critic of Northland's Job Corps over the years. But I would say that, yes, there have been some instances where they have been, for a period of time. I mean, they did a tremendous amount of work. They used to maintain our police cars. They used to assist Public Works to a degree with projects. They did quite a bit with some of the tree work in the city. So, there've been times where I would say, yeah, it hasn't been as positive as when they were writing us a check for $100,000 a year.
I know, but I think it's
But-
been 10 years since it's been run.
Absolutely.
Well,
yeah.
we had, like 5 years ago, we had the Resource Council.
Right.
We used to have lunches there every quarter. We were in touch with the director. He was in touch with George. I think there was a period of probably 3 years when it seemed to be running pretty well.
It was.
And then there were issues with with the company that oversaw it, and then they changed companies, and that just, it seems to have gone downhill from there. But all we
that's
can
part
do
of
is
the-
just keep pushing this,
Yeah.
you know, and
That's a big part of the issue. I mean, they continue to change
Yeah.
contractors, and it's hard to build relationships.
yeah.
that-
And they in the past have, and I would, possibly what's happening now is when there have been issues, they've tended to circle the wagons and assume almost a bunker mentality, which actually makes things worse. I mean, you know, to me, I mean, when they stop paying us, you know, game over. But
But that was like 10 years ago.
I absolutely.
Yeah.
But you know, we've had people that have been there since that time who have understood. Hey, you know, I have to put my best foot forward, and apparently these people that are running it now don't understand
It's not
that.
just the police, it's the ambulance service too.
Absolutely.
They're
Yeah,
all,
yeah,
they're
yeah.
there
Ab-
all the time.
Absolutely, absolutely.
To be fair, to pick up on something David said, they do have a very robust urban forestry program, and that element does continue to work with the city. But that's the one element that's really contributing.
All right. Please keep us apprised.
We'll do so, thank you.
I did notice that under the city manager's report, there is no budget report. Was there anything you wanted to say about
I'd be
it?
happy to discuss the.
If
budget.
anybody
Sure.
had any questions about that? Otherwise, we can move forward.
Yeah, I mean, I deliberately did not put it on, folks, and I can on a per meeting basis. I feel my comments are pretty consistent. You know, we continue to struggle with, getting keeping the police department revenue or expenses where they should be. That's something that, I just need to be in front of coming into July 2020 budget. Likewise with the police department, although we have additional activity, their revenue number, they will not make their revenue number this year. We know we went over in materials for DPW, for salt, et cetera. The rest of everything seems to, my reading to be okay. But if there are ever any questions, I encourage you to just please ask, or I can certainly keep it on the agenda, Jeff, if you'd prefer that I do so.
I have no preference. I think that we should be
Well, maybe once a month.
once a month.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
just for, at least we can review it,
Yep.
and,
It'll continue to be in the packet, and please, again, I encourage you to reach out with any questions that you do have.
I did
Excellent.
think that the Recreation Committee was supposed to be here tonight. They never contacted you?
No.
Did you have anything else?
That's all I have this evening. Thank you.
Great. We'll move forward to the mayor's report. We have a brief economic corridor update. I actually met yesterday with Senator Ruth Hardy and brought her up to speed on this project. She has requested some specific information regarding the impact of rail and some other issues that are addressed in the report, but Matt has reached out to Stantec to further give her some more in-depth answers to those questions. I have a call tomorrow with Senator Bray. I anticipate his support as well. We have the full support of our two representatives, Representative Barung and Representative Lanford, enthusiastic, I might say, support. Apparently, there are now conversations being had in the Legislative Lounge in Montpelier, so we are gaining some traction down there. They know what we're up to, and we continue to, Matt and I, to reach out to our neighbors and answer all the questions that we can, and we encourage you all to keep talking about the VEC. This is a big deal for our community, so we need to keep it at the forefront, which is why you're going to see it on the agenda constantly, so that we continue to talk about it. Anybody have any questions about where we are, what we're doing? I assure you it's all really very positive. I'm pretty excited. I'm really excited about all of it. And the other item that's on the agenda that I would like to keep on the agenda until we have proceeded further is the charter amendment. I know that I mentioned at the last meeting that we would be presenting a draft to you this meeting. We are not. We're not prepared. There are a few more issues to be addressed. So it is on the agenda again so that we keep it in front of us. And probably June is what we talked about, I think.
Depends on, there's just a couple of we'd like to be able to present it at the same time the public process starts. So we'd like whatever amendment comes out is as clean as it can be, even though it's gonna change with public comment. But if there's like to be inserted still, is not the best way to do it. So there's a half dozen things that just need to be finalized or checked and verified.
Great.
So there's nothing major happening, it's just, exactly where is Vergennes GPS wise,
Right.
as opposed to 437 rods to a pile of stones.
Right. I suspect that we'll probably be looking at June, not before June. We only have one meeting next month.
But we also don't want to
We
bump it
have-
off too much, because
Correct.
I don't know what the public process is, and we need to verify that too. Do we only need 2 meetings? Do we need 3 meetings? Do we need X meetings for every change there is? Is there time between meetings that has to happen? You can only do it every 3 weeks.
Right.
I don't know what the process is,
Okay.
but we have to make sure, because this has to be voted in March.
Right.
So we have to have a clean thing to present to the voters March 2020.
We will have
And I
that.
will work on that through the course of May and have it available. for
That's
you.
great. I think June is a good time.
But one thing to think about, since we're kind of pushing this off, if there are other ordinance or other charter things in the state, or there's ideas, this is the time to float anything. If you've got some things you'd like the city to be able to do that's set in stone, that changes our course, let's not decide in a year, you know what would have been great? Let's go through this whole thing again to amend for one section. So,
Let's annex Ferrisburg.
Yeah. Mark, you've done a lot of investigation and research into this. Are there recently amended charters that we all might want to look at for inspiration?
well, the news right now is Montpelier, non-citizens who get to vote in city elections. So I actually did throw that into to be considered. It is only for city questions and only for city officers, except for justices of the peace. I don't know why, but that's how that I took the language that the House has approved in Montpelier's charter. It's not for school board, it's not for county, it's not for state, and it's not for federal. So it's only for Jen's issues. And you have to be a legal resident, but you don't have to be a citizen.
So I would encourage you all to take
But
a
if-
look at.
yeah. If there are other things that you're
Right.
like, it'd be kind of cool if we did X.
Right.
Let's, I told Jeff when we were talking about the voting, it's like, this isn't set in stone. We're going to throw it to the public. And if our residents say, we don't want to do that, then we can take it out.
Don't do it.
That's the purpose of the public hearings. But they're not going to say yes or no if we don't give them something to consider.
Right. All right. Well, that was all I had. I am now looking for a motion to enter executive session for the purpose of discussing employee evaluations.
I'll make said motion.
Motion made
Second?
and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.